is everybody? This is a mic on, Congressman, and I think we are taping this, and it will be on our website. So if anybody has questions, it'll be on our website. Hey, George, how is everybody? I'm John Byard. I'm the mayor of Prattville. I'm glad to welcome you here. It's actually 4 minutes early. So, Congressman, do you want to go early, or do you want to? Okay. And that's right. I want to welcome each of you to City Hall. I'm glad that Congressman Bright is here for a town hall meeting. I want to tell you one quick thing about the congressman that I know. And I have enough to pray over that comes across my desk on local issues that I don't follow too strongly a lot of national issues, and because we have so much going on in our community. And I know people say this about this party or this item or that item, but I will tell you this, that is, Congressman Bright has been our congressman, represented us for about 2 years in Congress, and anything that we have ever needed as far as getting in contact with our congressman, he has been extremely easy to be in contact with. And Meg Joseph is over here, and I know he will introduce her, and that is who we talk with, his chief of staff. So I'm pleased that Congressman Bright is with us, and I'm pleased to introduce our Congressman Bobby Bright. We're glad to have you in Prattville this afternoon.
I appreciate it, and I will stay behind the mic if you want me to, but we might have enough space and enough pews that if everybody wants to, if I get to talking too low, and I may leave the mic, and if I do, just do like that, and I'll try to speak louder. And if you want to come up closer, you're more than welcome to do that too. We are here in Prattville today for the town hall. We have advertised it, I think, on our website and on in the local media. That's how we always try to make sure everybody knows that we're there, where we are, and when we're there. And this is I've been back in the district now for the August break for 2 weeks, I believe, last week and of course this week, and well, the week before and last week and now this week. And we had to go back last week for a vote on a key issue, a vote that was going to help the states continue to employ teachers and firefighters and police officers, and also help them with their matching federal dollars for FMAP, which is the matching dollars for Medicaid. And but we've been in the district pretty much continuously over the last couple of weeks, and we'll be here until September the 14th. So just because you may see me today and say, well, this is my opportunity to talk with a congressman and I won't get to ask him a question or see him anymore, you will. We'll be here. It is good. I'm proud of that. I am proud of that, I tell you. And if I have to, I'll speak louder if you need me to. And I see more people coming in, so I'm kind of rambling until they can get in here, so we won't leave them out of any major discussions. But they're coming in out of the rain and putting their umbrellas up, and that's good. That's a good sign. But anyway, I'm here, and I will be here until September, the middle of September, and you will see me hopefully more than once going through the district. This is our fourth town hall conference that we've had, or town hall that we've had in the last 2 and a little over 2 weeks, and we're going to continue to have more. We've had them in Dothan, Evergreen. Yesterday was in Eufaula and Troy, and now today's the fifth one in Prattville. So if you miss one here, don't hesitate. If you hear somebody say they missed the one today here, you tell them we'll have another one, and we'll have a number throughout our August break. This week's a good time for me to come and have a town hall, because I will tell you there's a number of sensitive, emotional issues pending out there in Congress, in the federal government. One being the illegal immigrants that we deal with on a daily basis. And for your benefit, and also for my benefit, to properly represent you in Washington, I went out last week and did a personal tour of the border in El Paso, Texas, and the eastern portion of New Mexico. And I did not make it to Arizona, the border. Maybe one day I will make it out there and see what's going on out there. But I did have an opportunity to go to El Paso and personally examine and see what's going on there, talk with some immigration and customs enforcement agents and division heads, and I also had an opportunity to talk with some of the custom agencies out there and heard what they had to say. I traveled to El Paso's port of entry. El Paso has 4 ports of entry, and when you say port of entry, I immediately think it's a water port. No, it's not. This was nothing more than a large concrete bridge across the Rio Grande, where people would travel in their cars and their vehicles and by foot if they wanted to choose to do that, over into the United States. So, and I talked with the head customs agent, got his input on what they were doing. And by the way, they are doing some good things in El Paso and along the eastern border of New Mexico. They're doing some good things in that their arrest of violators are way down. One thing that the previous administration did when they were in office back in 2005, 2006, they started enforcing and concentrating revenue resources on the border, and they called it Take Back Our Border. And as a result of that, 2005 had 1.7 million arrests of illegals coming across the border. By the way, the border is right at 2,000 miles long. It's 1,998, I believe it is. So it's right at 2,000 miles long. And so they had, in 2005, 1.7 million people that they arrested as illegals who came illegally across the border. As a result of the previous administration's effort to take back our border, El Paso, or the numbers I was furnished last week, shows that that was somewhat successful. It decreased by thousands and even hundreds of thousands of arrests or detainees each year over a period of 4 or 5 years. By the end of 2009, they had decreased from 1.7 to 676,000 arrest violators. So you can see what they were doing in El Paso and all along the border, quite frankly, over the last 5 years has been somewhat successful. Now, my concern, and I asked the agents there, that did the economy have anything to do with that? And of course it did. When you don't have the jobs over in our country, then you don't have the people coming in vast numbers across the border to take those jobs. So the economy did have a bearing on the decrease in numbers, but I do think that the resources and the true effort by the federal government to help on the border starting in 2005 helped to some degree. Now, that doesn't answer why we in Prattville and why we in Alabama still see a lot of illegals here in our communities out there. And I'm not sure what the answer there is. Are they going around places like El Paso who are doing a good job securing their boundary? And obviously, the answer is yes. And why are the arrests going down? Obviously, they're also not only getting through the border, but they're getting around the law enforcement agents or the customs agents, and they're not being arrested. So they're still coming. It's just a matter of where they are and whether or not we've got the resources on the border to secure the border to keep them from coming in vast numbers. So I had a good trip as a result of going down and being down there for a day and a half, 2 days, talking with the agents, seeing firsthand what they're up against down there. I will be a much more effective advocate for securing our border. And I do believe in that, no question about it. Let me take all the rhetoric, political rhetoric, because we're in a silly season right now because we're leading into a campaign. Let me take out any question or doubt about the Arizona law and what was attempted over there. I agree with it. Arizona was absolutely right in doing what they have attempted to do. Now, let me tell you how they went about doing it. They passed a law by way of their state legislators, and they did it because they needed help. The federal government was not giving the resources they need to help, that we should, in order to help them secure their borders. They were having a lot of drug trafficking across their border. They were having a lot of threats to the federal officials. Police officers, security or customs agencies were being threatened and wounded and whatever. And so they had to do something. The state legislature had to do something, just like I would feel like, and the mayor feels like we would have to do something if a rash of crime broke out in his community or in my district. So they passed a law. They had if you'll remember early on, there was a major issue as to whether or not it allowed or promoted racial profiling. And there was a major concern. Now, there was some discussion about whether or not it did, and reporters run to me and asked me, do you support this or not? I said, well, if it promotes and allows racial profiling, our Constitution does not stand for that. Our U.S. Constitution does not stand for that, and I would have to be against it. The state legislature went back into session, or went back in, and they passed an amendment to this bill because they too, like many other folks, had a question as to whether or not it would promote or could promote profiling. They amended it. They said, this is not what this is for. We're not going to tolerate, and our Constitution will not, nor this bill will tolerate profiling. They did that within 10 days after the original bill. When they did that, and I discovered they did that, that's when I came full force and said, what they are doing over there is right, and I totally support their efforts. So hopefully that'll clear that up, and you won't be having to guess whether or not your Congressman Bobby Bright supports getting tough like they did in Arizona on the border. We've got to get tough, and we've got to make sure that we're a nation of laws in America. And we have a legal system in place to where if you will comply with that legal system and you obey the laws that we've set up in our country, then you can become a legal resident here. When you become a legal resident, and I would venture to say that every single one of you in this office, in this room here, would say, I am going to help you as best I can as a new American to get a job, support your family, and do whatever it takes to live the American dream. And I will do that. But as long as you're illegal and you breach that law and you don't comply with our laws of our nation, you're not going to get my help and you're not going to get my assistance at all. I don't care who you are out there. However, we also don't need to lean totally against the illegal immigrant. We got to also punish the major corporations out there who are hiring intentionally and attracting these folks across the border and paying them illegally, intentionally. We've got to make sure that our e-verification is beefed up to where they can verify the employees, and if they're not legal, not hire them. If they're legal and illegal and we catch them doing it, then we need to punish them and pursue it to our federal laws. The laws are already there. The laws are already there. We need to enforce those laws, and I'm totally for that. So that was my trip in a nutshell to the border. I'm like you. I learn, and I'm more effective when I see, when I go visit, when I am there in person. I can read about it. I can hear about it on TV. I can watch it on video. I can read about it in the newspaper, and I have somebody come to me and tell me about it. But I'm better when I go and see personally what the situation is, and that's what I did. And I will be a more effective and better congressman and spokesman for you in Washington as a result of taking the time to go out there and see what our borders look like. Other issues out there right now, let me tell you, let me kind of give you the groundwork of what I've been doing as your congressman over the last 16, 18, 19 months, maybe a little longer. Number one, I have voted over 1,700 times. I would venture to say, and not trying to be insulting anybody in here, but I'd venture to say that very few of you would probably be able to recoup or recall more than maybe 10, maybe 15 different bills I voted on or we've voted on in Washington over the last 19 months. That's not a problem, but I'm just telling you, 1,700 votes over a period of 18, 19 months. What I have done is voted what I thought was best for you, what was best for my constituents on votes that really, truly affected us on a day-to-day basis. Health care, cap and trade, stimulus, bailout. I'm naming some of the high-profile, very emotional votes. And before I voted, I didn't call the Speaker, I didn't call the President, I didn't call the ranking member before I voted. What I did do, though, is I thought about what you would want me to do, what my constituents in District 2 would want, not whether you're a Republican, not whether you were a Democrat, not whether you were a Tea Party member or a independent or a libertarian. I didn't care what label you have. I cared about what I felt the vast majority of people in District 2 here in Prattville and all the way down to Florida wanted. And I've done that for the entire time I've been there. And I hope people who get to know who I am and who has watched my votes feel reasonably certain I'll continue to do that. No particular special interest. Oh, thank you, Cal. No particular special interest group, much less including a party label, is not going to decide my vote when it comes to issues affecting you. You, the people in District 2, here in Prattville, Elmore County, Autauga County, you're the boss. You're my boss. I answer to you and no one else. And that's my commitment. That's what I think my voting record reflects that. You know, a lot of folks want to say, well, you're a D. You got a D after your name. You're not going to be able to effectively represent me. Yeah, I can. And I hope if you've looked at my substantive voting record, you'll see that I don't vote a party base. My party base is my majority, the majority of the people in District 2. And the people who will respond to me and call me, write me letters, emails, call my staff, and say, tell the congressman I'm for this particular bill, I'm against this particular bill. We log that in, and we make sure that before I go over there to vote, we know what the vast majority of those contacts want us to do. And we try, unless it's something just irate, crazy off the wall, and we feel like it's been packed out there, and they do that. They will do that in Congress. Over the last year and a half, I've been awakened to trickery, political shenanigans, partisan shenanigans that take place in Washington, D.C. It takes place right here in City Council. It took place in Montgomery City Council, but it really, on a national, world basis, takes place in Washington, D.C. I'm not complaining because you know why? I know it's not going to affect me. What I'm going to do is always put the best interest of my constituents first and my country first. But there are people in Congress today who will vote whatever the party or the special interest tells them to vote. They don't vote their constituents. They vote the party. That is wrong. You didn't send me up there to vote Democrat. You didn't send me up there to vote Republican. And it's my job to make sure, sift through all that political rhetoric and the political shenanigans and make sure that your voice is heard on every single vote of substance up there. And that's what I have done. I've tried to do. Can I vote every issue that you want? No. I can vote what I think the vast majority of the people want me to do. And that's what I've done. And I'm sure with 1,700 votes under my belt and probably another 400 or 500 votes before the year is over with, there will be pieces of legislation that someone will be able to scour and scrutinize and research and come up here before you in some forum and say, this guy voted against your best interest on this particular issue. That's going to happen. It could happen. I hope it won't, but it could. So I try to prepare, but it doesn't only happen here in District 2. It happens in other districts too, not just with me. But that was the biggest disappointment that I've had in Congress, is that sometimes the issues are skewed, and they're skewed based on special interest. Now, I've talked enough, I think, but I am telling you, I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for taking your time from your busy days to come out here and let me hear from you. And I'm here to hear from you, not for you to hear me stand up here and preach to you. I'm not here to preach. I will tell you this: I love my country. I love my district. I love my state. I'm committed to continue to stay connected to the district. I have no intent to move to Washington, D.C. I hope y'all have seen that I come home when they get through with me on Friday. I come home because number one, I want to be in my church. Number two, number one, I want to be with my family. Number two, I want to be in my church on Sunday morning, and I've done that, and I will continue to do that. And I find that in my district, I've got some sinus problems today. I find that in my district, we've got over 700,000 people. We've got 93 cities, incorporated cities. And as a mayor, I realize that mayor is so critical for helping improve the quality of life. I feel like I'm a supernumerary mayor over 93 cities now instead of our capital city. And I feel a sense of obligation to those different communities to help them sift through, maneuver through the political landmines out there, to help them do what's best for their communities as a whole. That's why when the mayor mentioned in his comments a few minutes ago, my staff is dedicated to you. They better treat you professionally, they better treat you nice, and they better respond to you as quickly as they possibly can. It may not be the response you want, but it will be the legitimate, truthful response. And if they don't, you let me know, and we'll take care of it. They won't work for me any longer. They know that, and I've made that very clear to my staff, and they've been over backwards to be professional. With that, what I'll do is kind of open it up and start. Yes, sir. Taking comments. Now, let me tell you, questions, I don't care how simple you think it is, or how personal you think it is, or how whatever you think it is. If you've got an issue burning in your heart or your soul today, let's try to address it. Yes, sir.
I'm Bob Lee.
Yes, sir.
And several years ago when he was running,
Take my coat off.
Wendell may be a Democrat, but he's one of us.
Absolutely.
I feel the same way about you,
Good,
sir.
good.
I read the Birmingham News and I see how you vote, and it's
Good.
most impressive that you
Thank you.
certainly vote most of it. As I see it.
I can't vote every time your way or 100% of what the people want. But like I say, when I put, and I want you to see this because sometimes it's important, demonstrative. That card is my congressional ID card. That card has my picture, beautiful mug on the front, and it's got an encrypted thing on the front, and on the back it's got the seal of the United States, U.S. House of Representatives. I use that, and then behind the benches where we sit in Congress, there's a little box. A California Democrat?
But I agree 100%.
Okay.
That's something we need to look into.
Estate tax is, what he's referring to is that estates, after the principal dies or departs, whatever he's accumulated, if it's over a certain amount, the IRS gets a portion of it. This year it elapsed, and this year, if you were to die, you would not have to pay an estate tax, but it will kick back in next year. I have always felt that I'm an old poor guy. I was raised a sharecropper's son, and I believe that you energize and you motivate folks by letting them be successful. And if they are successful and they have a lot of revenues when they depart, they're going to leave it to their descendants, and that incites people to work hard, to be successful. But what we've done, and what we will do if we don't correct the problem, is we punish people for being successful. We will tax, let them have the first $5 million without tax, and then after that we're going to tax them at 55%, the rest of the estate. That deters people from wanting to be successful, quite frankly. A lot of folks say it promotes sharing the wealth, and it puts wealth back in after somebody's already paid taxes on it, and it won't give it to their heirs. I've found that usually the most successful person who generates those revenues, when he dies and it leaves it to his descendants, they're going to spend that money and put it back in the economy anyway. So I'm against death. I call them death taxes. Some people aren't, but I truly think my system is the right system to help motivate people to be more successful. And I'll tell you another reason I'm for them too. I'm against them. In my district, I'm highly agriculture. A lot of farmers out there, and they have to have a lot of acres in order to make a profit agriculturally. So when they accumulate a lot of acres and they die, many of the family members have to sell off most of the land to pay for the taxes. It's not fair. It's not right, and it doesn't promote agriculture. We need to promote agriculture and help our farmers in every way we can. Because I believe in the food chain. If we lose control of our food chain, we lose, it's a national security issue, we lose our strength and our sovereignty out there. So keep our farmers and our military strong.
Amen. I don't want to take up too much time, but there are several things that I hope you will touch on.
Okay.
One, of course, is this $13 trillion growing debt.
Absolutely.
This is a horrible thing that we just got to figure out ways to quit spending and not pass on all these deficits to our children and grandchildren.
Let me touch on that, because if you don't let me talk about each one of them, and he's not a plant, because he's touching on some issues that I want to touch on, but sometimes it's hard to touch on. When you're up here, it's a lot harder than it is when you're through. But the $13 trillion deficit. Now, first off, let me tell you that this administration didn't accumulate all of that. So let's put the hay on the table so everybody will understand it. It is being accumulated a lot, it will over the next year, 2 years, because this administration and Congress felt like they had to rescue the economy from a Great Depression. Now, I understand where they're coming from and what they're trying to do, what they did. I would have done it differently, but you can't criticize them for trying and helping keep our economy from tanking into a Great Depression that I've never lived through. You may have had some contact with it, but I heard my mom and daddy talking about it, and I didn't want to have to go back there. The deficit's $13 trillion. I've traveled my district. My district's, the vast majority of my district's conservative, and that's where we all sometimes get confused. It's not Republican. It's not Democrat. It's conservative. And I hear that when I travel through there. And I can be a conservative House member as a Democrat just like I can be a Republican. But it turns in the deficit, people try to play political games with it and make it sound like one's more to blame than the other. No, both parties have been to blame because they've been spending like drunken sailors out there. But I've heard in my district loud and clear, as I've traveled through my district, 16 counties, 93 cities, I've talked with thousands of my constituents, and I've heard loud and clear they want the excessive spending stopped. That's what I'm doing too. I've not voted on a single bill that would increase your taxes, number one, and would not send or spend excessively. Number two, stimulus, bailouts, TARP, the budget. Even last week when I went back up to make that one vote, that vote was to spend $26 billion. I voted against it. And you know what? I voted against some real key interest groups out there. But you know what? The strength and vitality and the economy stabilization right now for our economy, for our country, is much more important than special groups out there right now. I liken our economy to a big old battleship sailing in one of the oceans out there. It's getting lower and lower and lower into the water. What do you do when that happens? You don't take on additional baggage or cargo. You shore it up and hopefully do some good things, get that ship coming back up out of that water high and strong. Then you address some of these issues, these feel-good issues that we're addressing too many of right now. Once it gets up there and you can do it, then you can make better decisions and you shore up the economy for a long-term survival and strengthening of our nation. That's what I intend to try to do, and that's what my votes have reflected. Now, Mr. Lee, you have excellent on some questions, but I got a couple more. I'll come back to you if I can get a couple more under the belt.
Okay, my question to you is just relaying on this again.
All right.
There's more. This year is the first year in the history of this country where we've got more people in the public sector than we do have in the private sector on payroll.
Now I'm taking that you know that for sure.
Yes.
I don't know that for sure.
That's a fact.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's the public sector. I mean, it's the private sector in here that creates the jobs and creates everything else.
It is.
But they're the ones that are being hampered with all the taxes and everything else to the point where they're not hiring because they're not sure about whether the tax cuts are to continue or whatever. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a saying that says that if you ignore history, you're bound to repeat it.
Absolutely.
And if you want to go back into the early 20s and then in the 60s and in the 80s where tax cuts came in, the revenue and jobs increase to the country unbelievable. And they couldn't understand the tax revenue that was coming in because you cut the taxes and put the money back in the hands of the people who know how to spend it a lot better than the government. Can I just give one example? Sure. The $5 billion cash for clunkers had a $280 return on the investment. That's not a very good return on the investment. And that's happened on so many other things. If you really want to stimulate this economy,
tell me how you do it.
There are roughly 310 million people in the United States right now, between 308 and 310. Say half of those are adults, 180 million. You give them all $1 million or $2 million, and I bet you'd stimulate the economy. And you'd
have some people going crazy.
I know, but
yeah. Let me first.
That's not billions of dollars either.
Yeah. Now you threw some real good decisive facts out, but let me clarify one important factor that people don't realize. Do you know that in 2010, 2009, your individual income taxes went down? The taxes in the country went down. You know why? You don't feel it. You haven't been told that, and you probably don't, or you want to question what I'm telling you. Ask the experts. The taxes are lower on individuals in America this year than they've been since the 1950s. That's true. It's true. You know why? Because there was tax incentives put into place over the last year to try to help save and rescue our economy. And people don't realize that. You think, and based on what you said, you assumed that our taxes are going up every year. It went down this year. That's a fact. And if you don't trust me, check it out. Went down. That's why people are they're angry. They are sometimes distrustful because we have such varying information being given to us on TV. I tell folks, watch Fox News for a couple hours, then switch over to MSNBC and CNN, and then the truth. Don't believe either one of them. Don't believe either one of them. The truth is somewhere in between. So you may not want to hear that, but that's what we all need to do so we'll get a fair and balanced impression of what's going on in our world.
I guess say one other thing.
All right, I'm going to go here, and then I'm going over there.
Thanks for being here.
Oh, sure.
And second, you do say, or you do vote on what you say.
Yeah,
I've
good.
been to your office in Washington,
Good.
D.C. I've met with you.
Good.
You said you're going to vote a certain way on certain things. You have done that. You
Good.
have not done a turnabout.
Good.
And I compliment you on that.
Now how you're about to hit me, so now go ahead and hit me.
I'll tell you that in the very beginning.
Oh,
what
good,
I've got.
good. You did good. I appreciate that. I try to live up to my word. I was raised the old way. I was the 13th out of 14, and y'all know this. And the reason I'm going to point it out, though, is you need to know this. I was raised the old-fashioned way. I was the 13th out of 14. My oldest brother and sister were like, right now, of course, they're deceased. 8 of my 14 brothers and sisters are deceased. But they were raised like many of my peers, my age, parents were raised. But my parents were like their grandparents, and I was raised by my grandparents the way they looked. But my daddy always taught me, the short time he lived with us, told me to always live up to your word. Give a man a good day's work so you can always go back there if you ever have to. And that's what I always try to do. And my mom always told me, treat the other person as you would have them treat you, and I try to do that. And you don't have to tell me, if I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it, or I'm going to come back to you, look you in the eye, and tell you why I can't do it. That's what I try to do, and that's why I've been successful as an old sharecropper's son, because I've got common sense, and I tell folks the truth. And if I ever mistake the truth, I try to correct it. And people are good. We got good people in Alabama, and we got excellent people in my district, I'm telling you. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. I need it. Yes, sir.
I serve as a director, and I'm here as my capacity as a director, president, general manager, and the chief executive officer of the Single Adult Support Center here in our city.
Now, where is Single Adults?
We're located off of Dawson Road here in the city.
Oh, okay.
If you come down past the American Legion, make your left, and next you get to Linear Road, make your left, and the dead end's there at the Single Adult Support Center. We're patterned after the rest of the senior center. They provide support services to senior citizens in our community. We do the same thing that they do. But to the best of our ability, we provide support services to senior adults 18 and older.
Can't hardly understand because of the echo, but
Oh yes, for senior adults 18 and older, and whatever you can do on on the federal level to help aid us and assist us in any way, financially or in kind, as relates to being able to have the resources to be able to support senior adults, whatever we can do to help aid and assist single grown people in our community. That's what we do.
Yes.
We've been doing that application for
Okay.
the last 4 or 5 years. I sent a letter to you recently requesting one of the things that we do at the center is provide an annual observance of World AIDS Day here in our community, and requesting that your wife, Judge Bright, Judge Lynn Bright, be our guest speaker. But if she can't be our guest speaker, we'd love to have you come and fill in for her.
I got my wife on my little farm over here on Alabama River Parkway. She's happier than she's ever been in her life. I'm turning her into a farmer's wife. I got some chickens and some goats and a peacock, and she loves it.
But that's going to be the Tuesday.
So she's probably not going to want to do all this. I understand. Thank you.
It was a joy to also see you all at the Prattville City Hall.
Good.
Yes, always good to see you.
Hey, this is my district. I love it.
Tuesday, 16 November, 7 o'clock p.m. at the Gospel Motor Community Center, and I'll shoot you a flyer as soon as we send them out.
Give me a flyer, and I've got some staff members here.
Yes, and if you can't come, even if you can send us our representative, we'd be glad to have them there.
Thanks for the invitation.
Lastly, what I wanted to say, as an American African, and a Native American, the Cherokee tribe, with my history, heritage, and in fact, my family home, I was telling the mayor recently, just up on 7th Street, my mother's family, they were married with the Cherokee tribe. And they lived in that same house, that same piece of land for 150 years, right? That house still sits where it always said, ain't no dead on it nowhere.
Your question is?
What I want to do is know your position as it relates to what's taking place out there in Arizona. I read the paper this morning that the public
Yeah.
civil rights legislation, and so on and so forth. Because as an American African, I could not treat any other group of people in that way, not even for the sake of illegal immigration.
Yeah. I don't think it's treating people differently. What I propose, and I think every person in here would feel comfortable proposing, is we've got a set of laws. Let's follow those laws. And if you follow those laws, you won't have a better friend than anyone sitting here or in America to help you reach and obtain your American dream. That's just how it is. Other countries have reasonable immigration laws, and they enforce them, and America should be no exception. I'm going to tell you one thing that's important. Old wise man told me one time is that if a country cannot define its boundaries, it's not a country at all. So we define our boundaries. We establish the laws that we live by, and anyone who wants to come here is welcome. But they have to comply with those laws too. Bottom line, and it's not racial, it's not constitutional rights, it's not human rights, it's the law. And we're a country of laws. And we're a country of compassionate individuals. You can't find a better, more compassionate nation when you have a catastrophic event happen, Haiti, and some of these other places. America stepped up to the plate, and they did more than their share. I say more than their share. They did a major portion, and still working. So, come on. Let's all realize one thing. We're not in this as African Americans, Asian Americans, Hispanic Americans. We're in this as Americans. And we have a great country, and that great country is being threatened in the form of economic catastrophic events that are being affected globally. This is not just America, this is global. And what we've got to do is work together for that common goal. I don't care how we do it. You can do it as a Republican, Democrat, Independent, whatever. But we all got to realize we're Americans first and foremost, and protect our country, secure that country, make sure we continue to be strong for our children and grandchildren. And we're being threatened. $13 trillion deficit, way too much. It's weakening our ability to influence the world market out there, the world. We got to get a hold of it. We got to quit spending. We all want to help every single person in the world we can, but we can only do so much. We cannot afford two wars that are sapping our resources and killing our young people and our military community and our contractors when our infrastructure in America is falling down around us. But we've got to protect our country too. And if we could draw back some of those resources, secure our border, and start thinking of America first, and everybody that's American, whether you're African American or wherever, we've got to start doing that. And we can do it if we'll all have some cooperation and quit letting partisan titles control who we support. Support the person that you know is the best person, regardless of whether he's Republican, Democrat, Independent, or Tea Party. I don't care. I say it now. I say it when I'm in Washington, D.C., and I will continue to say it. One of the biggest problems we're facing in America is divisiveness, and it's in the form of Republican and Democrat. You can't tell me all Democrats are wrong and all Republicans are right. You can't tell me that. But likewise, you can't prove to me all Republicans are wrong and all Democrats are right. Let's don't reward people for reaching across that political divide by putting them out of a party or punish them or running someone against them to beat them because they didn't do what the party wanted them to do. Let's reward those folks and say, you know what, you stepped across that political divide and you did something good for our country, and we appreciate it. Thank you very much. I'm going to go way back to the very back because this lady has been sitting there very patiently. And you had a good dissertation. And I'm coming to you next. Yeah. Immigration is not an easy topic.
They say, you know, what's going on with the border with Canada? You guys get more border with Canada than any other country on there?
We do, but we don't have the people coming through as much as they are in.
What are we doing to protect the border as it relates to our border with Canada?
Probably, I will venture to say, not as much as what we're trying to do in the southern boundary. for some reason, it doesn't seem, even though they have the right to come through, and we are getting terrorists and people unwanted coming through there, it seems like the ones that are being more threatening are the southern border. Yeah, that's right. That's another thing too. This is driven by poor people in another country who wants to have part of the American dream. That's where it's coming from. And criminal. You got some criminals the cartel who want to sell drugs and get rich too, and they're doing that, and we're trying to fight that too. I didn't read that. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't. Yeah. They are. Yeah. Yeah. Corporate America has a lot of influence in Washington, D.C. Bottom line for corporate America is profit. How much profit they can make. That's what their bottom line is. And if they can hire a cheaper labor force, they're going to do it. So we've got to not only punish the lowly immigrant who's coming across to get a job to support his family, we got to also take seriously the punishment for the major corporations who are doing this freely and openly for profit. So I hope I've made myself clear there. But you know what? That may be why we can't get a lot of interest and control and a lot of resources at the border now because, like I said, corporations have a lot of influence in Washington, D.C. Okay? Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
First of all, let me say this much. I agree with what is happening in Arizona, 100%.
Good.
Not only that, inasmuch as, I'm a veteran, her husband was retired. We have lived in foreign countries. So therefore, we have to obey their law or go to their jail.
No question.
Now, the same thing needs to happen here. Okay, what I'm wondering is this. I believe it was here in Prattville, I read this morning in the paper, where this illegal immigrant was deported 3 times back to Mexico. And Judge Myron
Thompson
sentenced him, which he should have been more. I forget how long the sentence him, but it should have been more. He did facetious. If this guy wants to stay here, give him some time in jail and let him stay here and become an American citizen. Now, with what you were saying that is taking place in El Paso, has Congress thought about putting the same protection or the same things across the entire border to eliminate this coming in? Because, when I think about it, when you read about the things that's happening, the crime that is taking place in these border towns, we have enough crime as it is. And we don't need this type of crime coming into this country. I've read about some lady in Arizona where these people use her property as a thoroughfare. She's afraid to say anything to them for fear that she would lose her life.
Sure, yeah.
Now, what I would like to know, granted, it is true, we are in economic crunch.
We are.
But I feel that if we use some money to strengthen the borders, the whole 2,000 miles, that this would eliminate some of these problems. Not only that, these people, I shouldn't say it that way, illegal immigrants, they are taking this money back to Mexico. We are not getting any kind of return on this money. And this probably, by this season, we could have some of the things that we need here, and it could help eliminate our national debt. Also,
You're preaching to the choir, I think. You're preaching to the choir. I agree with everything you've said so far.
Has anyone proposed a plan
yes, ma'am.
to do this?
Yes, that's the difficulty. That the 2,000-mile distance is not as easy as what, you can build the wall of China down there, but I will say this, that if you build it 20 feet, they'll build a rope 21 feet. or a ladder 21 feet. So the wall is not the total answer. It will impede or deter, but there's always people who will, for profit, find ways around it or through it, and that's what happens now. Also, the expense of building the wall would be significant. With our economy, it's pretty tough to be able to do that. I will tell you, though, and I don't know if I shared this with you, what I did learn about El Paso is that El Paso is the second safest city in the Western Hemisphere. You would think it would be highly criminal, but it's not. However, right across the border, the Rio Grande, which, by the way, is not a grand river like the word says. It's nothing but a little stream. You know what I told them? I said, y'all need to come back to Alabama and I'll show you what kind of river or stream we have. You ain't going to be able to cross it like you can the Rio Grande. You can go across the Rio Grande and even get your feet wet. But anyway, across the Rio Grande is Juarez, Mexico. Do you know that Juarez is the most dangerous city in the Western Hemisphere? El Paso is the second safest city in America, in the United States. And I was wanting to know what they were doing in El Paso. The resources, we're compared to Mexico, somewhat much more wealthier country. So we have put some resources in that area. They're using those resources very well, and our economy has slowed down, so the numbers of the people who are coming across have significantly decreased. We need to take some of that knowledge and some of those resources that we know work in El Paso and spread them on over to the Arizona border, if we can. Plus technology too. We can do some security cameras and some drones and some additional security. Now I will say the president too is trying to step up to the plate on this. Last 2 months ago, he approved 1,200 National Guard to go out and help the customs agents. He also approved $500 million to go out for training and for equipment and surveillance equipment for the National Guard to go out there and help. And when I was there, I saw the National Guard working some of the infrared cameras that they use. That is amazing. When I saw what they can see with those cameras, they shoot those cameras down the borderline, and they pick up anything that's got heat like a human body. But they couldn't find a human that night, but they showed me jackrabbits that were out there hidden in the sagebrush and all, and it was amazing to me what they can do with good equipment. We got to have more of that. We've got to spread it all across the border, not just there in El Paso.
One other thing, too. In regards to what you were saying regarding the program that Arizona has in place, now, you were saying that some people consider this to be racial profiling.
It could. They said the law could have under the present existing verbiage.
That's true, but see, here's the thing right here that I think a lot of people need to understand. I can go out this door right now, get in my car to go home. A policeman can pull me over and ask to see my identification. He may be checking for driver's license, he may be checking for insurance, or what have you. Now, this happens to us quite frequently. I'm pretty sure a lot of people in here have been pulled over by the state trooper checking to see if you have insurance.
I haven't.
You have? I have. I have. Okay. And yes, maybe, it may bother you sometimes.
recording that.
But they're trying to find out things. And, as Americans, we are obeying the law. Because we're supposed to be insured, we have to have driver's license. So I don't really consider that to be racial profiling. You're just trying to show up some things that's happening. And I know I probably could.
Let me give you an example of what they were wanting to be, what they were said they could be concerned with. Is somebody seeing someone who is of Hispanic descent, and the police officer just saying, "Use the mic." Oh, what they were concerned about, what a lot of folks were concerned about, and what our Constitution guards against, is somebody saying, I'm law enforcement, I see a Hispanic over there, I'm going to go and check him. No reason, no probable cause, no reasonable suspicion whatsoever. Check him, see if he's illegal. And that's what the Constitution guards against. You have the right as a citizen to freely roam as long as you don't create suspicion of criminal activity. But just being a black or being a white or being a Hispanic is not justification for somebody to say, you look suspicious to me. That's what people are concerned about. And quite frankly, that is what our Constitution guards against. Do I?
The law did not say that in Arizona.
I know, but there were some people that read the law and thought it did, and they amended it. But now, let me ask you, are you aware that it was modified within 10 days? And it clarified it. It removed any doubt. And when it did, that went out the door.
Why didn't the federal government say, we'll partner with you since we don't have the resources? We'll partner with you and try to resolve the problem instead of file a suit.
And I agree with you. Our resources should have been spent toward other ways rather than fighting litigation. Let the person who might be violated bring that lawsuit, not the federal government, federal resource. I'm going to, it's 3:52. I don't want to keep you any longer. I'll stay here as long as you want me to answer questions, but I don't want you to stay here thinking that you would embarrass me some way to go out. You're not going to do that.
I'm Mike Holmes.
Yes, sir. Mr. Holmes.
Fifth most conservative county in the nation. I'm proud of it.
Hey, trust me, I represent it. I know.
I want to add my appreciation to all the others up here. We admire and appreciate your voting record. You voted the right way in our opinions on most of the issues, and we appreciate that.
Thank you.
There's one very onerous piece that you voted against, legislation that passed around Christmas Day this year. It's very troubling, potentially devastating for our country. That's the health care takeover of our private health care system known as Obamacare.
Yeah.
Can we count on you to support a repeal of this onerous legislation, and will you vote for it if it comes up for it?
And a lot of folks, want to discuss that. And let me tell you what we don't want to do first. We don't want to go back and make this a political issue like we did last year, a partisan political issue like we did last year. We had 35 million to 40 million people uninsured. It's costing you and me when they go to the doctor, and they usually go to the doctor in the last 6 months of their medical needs most of the time, and that's very expensive. Can we come together as reasonable people and resolve this issue once and for all? Now, we had a real heated year, very partisan, where you had lies, where you had innuendos, where you had mistruths, where you had partisan issues, control. You had death panels. You had all this stuff out there, which has proven differently. We have now passed a health care plan. Now let's look at good things it does. And I will be the first, and I've already got a proven record of repealing portions of it that I think will be burdensome on our businesses and on our individuals out there. I support the attorney generals in the states who are challenging the mandates and the mandates of making people buy insurance who otherwise do not want to buy insurance. I support that, and I hope they're successful. The courts will determine that. Even those challenges are challenging not the full repeal. They're challenging portions that they feel violate the Constitution by mandates. I disagree with the tax increases. I'll always disagree with that. And there's other things that I disagree with. I even disagree with this. I ask it over and over again. Will this contain and control health care costs? That's the issue. When I travel through, well, I know not for you, but it is on a lot of folks. And when I travel through my district, I would go to business after business after business, and they would constantly tell me my premium for my family coverage in my business is going up 10, 20, even 33% annually. And they would say, and Congressman, if something doesn't give, I'm going to cancel my insurance, and my employees, 200, 150 employees, are going to be without insurance, and they're going to have to go out and find it on their own. So something had to give. We've got this plan. Let's look at it. Let's see if we can tweak it. Let's see if we can repeal the bad parts, and I will every time it comes up, but keep the good parts of it. And I'm going to tell you, there's a good part. Keeping a child on the parents' insurance until they're 26 years old helps many, many young people, and it helps the parents. Requiring pre-existing conditions. That's an issue that needs to be addressed, and it was addressed in this. That's something that can be good for our country as a whole. There's a number of other things I could stand up here and list and tell you that we need to make sure that stays. But to repeal it before we see whether or not it can be something good that we can salvage, let's be mature about it, not political.
Because a lot of people are watching you and your
Oh, I know.
position on that.
I know they are, but I'm giving you, Mr. Holmes, I'm giving you a mature, rational, common sense approach, and not a party political approach.
You start off with good facts. There's not 35 million uninsured people in this country.
All right, how many do you say there are?
There's probably, you can just tick them off.
Yeah.
17 million of those are illegals, or whatever they are. They're illegals. They're not eligible for insurance in this
Yeah,
country.
I agree with that.
All those people who don't, by their own choice, don't want to buy it, not
Yeah.
going to buy it, even if you find them.
They're not entitled, and I don't think, and Mr. Holmes, I don't think this health care will, and that was one of the provisions that we talked about, and this health care does not cover illegals,
Doesn't make sense.
nor abortion, things like that.
You're counting in that 35 million, so stop saying 35
Well,
million.
I'm using the numbers that the experts are telling me.
You need to go get your facts.
Well, give me the facts then if I'm wrong.
It doesn't
You
make,
know where to get it.
I'm going to come over here because you haven't had an opportunity.
I got a question.
Okay?
If this health care is so good, why is coverage exempt?
You know, I'm not sure. I'm not on the health care, Congress health care. You know that you may find this informative, but the state health care plan here in Alabama is better than the congressional health care plan. Did you know that? So my wife is a retired employee, so she has health care, so I don't have the federal health care. Oh, Social Security. What are you asking about Social Security?
Pay Social Security?
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you draw Social Security?
I paid. Let me tell you how. Let me tell you a little story about Social Security. You know what? I've paid Social Security ever since I was 11 years old, every year. And when I get my little report every year, I check to see if I was to retire at some point in time, whenever I do get that age, how much I would be receiving. But since 11 years old, every year, haven't missed a year. And so I'm as concerned about Social Security as you will be. I will say this. There are a lot of folks out there, and my opponent's one of them, that wants to privatize Social Security. Had we privatized it about 3 or 4 years ago, we'd have some real destitute senior citizens right now. We can't go there. If we do, we need to ensure that it stays like it is, give them an opportunity to put additional money in there, and then give them control over that portion. But we need to make sure our seniors are taken care of with that Social Security. Yes, sir. This will be my last one. It's 4 o'clock, and I will stay, though, if you have a real burning particular issue, and I'll try to address that for you privately. Yes, sir. You look like Mr. Henry Noble. Are you any kin to Noble? My barber who cut my son's hair for the first time, Mr. Henry Noble. Looked just like his brother.
I just want to say I appreciate how you vote and carry on yourself, and you are beginning to be a statesman.
Thank you, sir.
And
Appreciate that.
any of those left.
I'm closing on that one. The one I'm ahead. Thank you. You're right. I'm an old cotton.
Difference it takes to get 100 pounds of cotton.
I picked a many a bow of cotton and many a sack of cotton.
You mentioned the Social Security privatized. The Alliance for Retired Americans. They against it too. And that's one of I want you to keep your eye on.
Tell me that again.
The Alliance for Retired Americans. Now they're taking Social Security and Medicare. And they're in reference to privatizing. They don't want it either.
Good.
Neither do I.
We don't, because you know what? You saw what happened to our financial institutions out there. You would have lost upwards to 40% of your Social Security had it been privatized 4 years ago. That's drastic. That's horrible. We owe our senior citizens, our senior adults, a quality life, and they have invested in this. We need to make sure not to privatize it and gamble on the financial institution. We need to secure it and make sure it's there as we get older and need it.
You vote for lockbox?
Lockbox on that? There's one other topic.
it's a lockbox of Social Security only.
They're not putting it in the general fund. What they're doing is they're loaning as people, as state agencies want, and the state agencies give back a loan. But Social Security, as I've been told by the experts, will be secure until 2037. But now, let me tell you, that doesn't mean that we rest on our laurels. What we do is we work hard to make sure that it's shored up and it continues, and they're saying, that it continues to be there for our children and grandchildren when they get our age. When they get our age. Okay. This will be the last one.
With the House Bill 4593.
And what is that? What is that?
Chris Holden, Maryland.
Okay.
This is to bring the Great American Military Retirees Act more together. Waiving Part B of Medicare for the retirees of the military services. I'm a USN. I don't do military, but up to 1956.
Yes.
That's when they quit using Medicare or free medical service after you retire on point. They quit advertising, quit recruiting. I hope you keep your eyes on that one.
I tell you, before you leave, give my chief that number, and you can rest assured we'll keep our eye on it. And make sure we got your name and number, and we'll keep you on there too. We'll keep you posted.
Thank you.
Thank y'all very much. I could stay a long time. Thank y'all for listening. And if you have a burning question, I'll stay around and try to answer.
Good job, sir. It's always good to see you again.